We want you to remember that you are an extension of source energy. And we want the most important thing in every moment of every day for you to be awareness and maintenance of that connection. Because when you are aware and deliberately maintaining that connection, which is what we're talking about, allowing that connection. When you are maintaining, tending to that connection, you're thriving. You're clear-minded, you're joyous, you're healthy, you're sure-footed, you're confident, you're eager, you're passionate, you're in love with life. You are who you are. So when you feel frustrated or overwhelmed or afraid or angry or depressed, those emotions don't mean you're bad. They don't mean you're wrong. Those emotions mean you've practiced some thoughts for quite a long while and activated them often enough in your vibration that they become familiar. And now you have a belief or a dominant vibration that has enough divergent thought in it. And by that we mean different from who you really are and what you really know, that you got static in your vibration. So you're pinching off your connection to the well-being that is flowing to you that you just can't hear. It's like electricity flowing through the walls of your house, but if you don't plug into it, your toaster doesn't work. And if you don't find a way of connecting to the source energy that is flowing to you at all times in a dominant way, then you are doing less than thriving. And it is your intention and your legacy and your right to thrive. You knew when you came into these bodies that there would be plenty of things, plenty of variety, a smorgasbord on all topics for you to choose from. And you knew that you would be looking around and that you would be discerning your own personal preferences. But your plan was then and still is to look around until you figured out what it was you preferred, and then your plan was to give your undivided attention to what you prefer because you understood that that's the way you train your vibrational alignment with what you prefer. And when you do that, it comes to you. Have you ever known someone who you knew was so wrong-headed, you knew that they were not based on what you thought was moral or appropriate behavior, and yet their life still continued to work, they still continued to win? You know why? They don't listen to the other side of the argument and mix up their vibration. They focus upon what they want. They hold themselves in alignment with what they want. They send only one signal about what they want, and the universe delivers to them what they want. And it doesn't matter how many others stand back and claim injustice, unfairness, foul play, inappropriate. The law of attraction always answers your vibration. And it doesn't have anything to do with what anybody else is doing or what anybody else thinks about what you're doing unless you change your vibration because of what they think about what you're doing. That's why a variety of medical remedies can work differently on different people. That's why there's not one cure that always works. That's why a variety of religious intentions works for different people. There's not one truth or one religion that is appropriate. So it is your job as an extension of source energy to line up with that which you are an extension of. And you can tell by the way you feel how you're doing about that. So you have within you an emotional guidance system. Emotions that range all the way from passion and joy and appreciation, all the way to despair, all the way to depression. We want you to feel with us for just a moment that no matter what name you give or label you give these emotions, there is passion and appreciation and love and joy and knowing. There is believing. There is hoping to believe. There is optimism and there is pessimism. There is frustration and overwhelmment. There is discouragement. There is fear and there is anger. There is anger and there is fear. It depends upon what you're angry about, where it falls on the equation. But fear is a very deep resistance emotion. And then there is that feeling of despair or depression. And we want you to notice that as you move up or down, this emotional scale, that on the end that feels wonderful is the knowledge of empowerment. That's where the perception of freedom is. And on the other end of the scale, where despair and fear and depression are, that's where there is a perception of absence or loss of freedom or empowerment. When you feel an emotion like fear, can't you feel that in that fear there is the perception of powerlessness? We really want you to notice that that's what emotions are about. You are empowered beings, but when you perceive that you have not power, then you begin to feel fear. And what happens to so many people is because they are not really aware of this emotional meter, and they are not aware that they can take an emotional journey in a matter of seconds or minutes and change their vibrational attitude and point of attraction, and therefore change what's manifesting in their experience, because so many people have forgotten that, don't remember that, or have taught themselves something very different from that as they have attempted to please others in this physical body. What begins to happen is that large segments of your population, which just means a lot of individuals who become mass consciousness, come to believe that the way they control the way they feel, which is important to every one of them no matter what they say, the way they control the way they feel is by trying to change the circumstances that affect them when they focus upon them. When you look at something that makes you feel good, you say, yeah, I'd vote for that. But when you look at something that makes you feel awful, you say, we've got to do something about that. We've got to get rid of that. We have to change that. We have to take that out of our society or get that off of the face of this earth. And what we're wanting you to remember as we're rampaging through this glorious day together is that you will never find your freedom through attempting to control the behavior of others, because you can't do it. You can't even control your wife. You can't control your kids. You couldn't control your parents when you were kids trying to control your parents. Teachers can't control their students. Employers can't control their employees. Wonderful man in a restaurant the other night, Jerry and Esther's favorite restaurant in this area, said, I have employees and 75% of them I adore, and 25% of them I would like to kill. And he wasn't kidding. You cannot effectively shift the way you feel if you believe the way you feel is contingent upon the changing of some circumstance or condition outside of you. That's why so many masters and teachers have tried to remind you about unconditional love. Unconditional love means love without changing conditions. Unconditional love means staying connected to Source regardless of the conditions, and in the continuing connection to Source, then the conditions must acquiesce to the changed vibration. We can feel that through your trial and error, through your willingness to experience life, through your wanting to feel good, and through your constant seeking, that you have come to know these things that we are talking about. And now it's just a matter of practicing them until you not only know it about this, but you know it about that, and about that, and about that, until you come to know it about everything, until you are able to look at your own body, even if it has something that you don't want in it, and you're able to relax and say, this too shall pass. It can go out the same door it came in. It came in vibrational alignment to something that I was thinking before I was even aware I was thinking it. And now I have changed the rhythm of my thought, and now I'm reaching for thoughts that consistently feel good to me on a myriad of subjects. All things unwanted must leave, and all things wanted must come. It is law. It is not possible for you to want something that does not come into your experience if you are in vibrational alignment with what you want. So why would you not be in vibrational alignment with what you want? Why would you not give your undivided attention to what you want? Because you've been trained to ferret out the problem, wrestle it to the ground, and kill it. But what you're coming to understand is, in the whole process of ferreting it out, identifying it, cataloging it, pigeonholing it, making monuments about it, talking about it, passing it on from generation to generation, you've activated in your vibration, so it must continue to be your experience. You cannot wrestle it to the ground and kill it, because there's another and another and another and another and another, because the universe will constantly give you whatever is in your vibration. No exceptions, you see. You've got to change your vibration. There is not a medical cure that can cure something that's off in your vibration. There's not a pill or a surgery that can keep you whole if you've got a vibration going on that's not allowing well-being. And so when you realize that everything that's happening globally is symptomatic of what's happening individually, but you do not worry yourself about what's happening globally. You tend to the only thing that you can tend to, and that's what's happening individually. And you work to align yourself with what feels good. You begin to be an example of thriving. And it is our promise to you that when you thrive through the clarity of your example, you will be of value to others. And it is also our promise to you that you cannot get sick enough to help sick people get well. And you cannot get poor enough to help poor people become prosperous. And you cannot get agitated about the political process enough to improve it. In other words, until you align with what feels good, you will not be in vibrational alignment with what feels good. And until you align with what feels good, you will not be in vibrational alignment with what feels good. Now, this sounds like circular reasoning, but what we're saying to you is, you gotta line up. You gotta line up. You gotta line up. You gotta line up with what you want. You've got to line up with what you want. So why don't you? Well, it's because you were lining up with thoughts before you were paying attention to how the thoughts you were lining up with felt. And you developed a vibrational habit of lining up, and law of attraction then matches those thoughts. Someone said to us the other day, Abraham, it feels like my thoughts are thinking me. Doesn't feel like I have control of what I'm thinking. I wake up and there they are. I try to change the subject, but there they are. And we say, well, don't despair. You've just got some thoughts activated, and we know we want to give you the benefit of the doubt. We want you to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. We want you to help let yourself off the hook by saying, law of attraction is really bringing these thoughts in that I've been thinking. But now a wonderful thing has happened. Now I have visceral awareness, emotional awareness that this thought is not beneficial to my experience. I can tell by the way it feels. So when I criticize myself, that's not good for me. When I criticize you, that's not good for me. When I find fault with me, that's not good for me. When I find fault with you, that's not good for me. When I worry, that's not good for me. When I worry, I'm actually negatively creating. When I worry, that means what I'm worried about is in the process of becoming. Friends will say, but Abraham, how can I not worry about this fact? And how can I not give this fact, this truth, this evidence my attention? And we say, think about what you're saying. You're saying somebody else who didn't want that gave it their attention, gave it a lot of their attention, achieved vibrational alignment with it, attracted it into their experience, and because they did that, then you should too? If we were standing in your physical shoes, we'd be very particular about what we give our attention to. But we wouldn't go about it by monitoring thoughts. We would go about it by deciding that nothing is more important than that we feel good. And then by little, thought by thought, day by day, subject by subject, reaching for the best feeling thought that we could find in the moment. Joseph Campbell, magnificent teacher, gave you the best words that have ever been spoken on this subject of lining up with source energy and creating your own reality in a way that would please you. He said, follow your bliss. And we say, perfect guidance. But knowing what we do about the emotional scale, if you are in fear or despair, you can't get a whiff of bliss. An attempt to follow bliss from a place of despair leaves you feeling failure because You can't set your radio tuner at 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.6 FM. The frequencies are too far apart. And you can't be in a place of despair because of something you've been observing or living or thinking about. And all of a sudden, quantum leap over into the vibration of bliss. It's not going to happen. But you could do the best that you could about feeling the best that you can from where you are, and you could shift despair to something that feels better to you, like revenge.